Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank. I'm coming at you live from Tunnel Hills in Hardin County, Kentucky. And I am here to talk to you about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because here in Hardin County, we know that that is what makes life worth living. And that's what we get out of bed for in the morning. So how do we keep it? Well, we keep it through a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Not a government of the oligarchs, of the Epstein class, and for the corporations. Those are all supposed to be here to be facilitators of us having life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They're not supposed to hinder it. So I'm running for magistrate in District 3. And again, like I said, this is the Hillbilly Think Tank. I am the educated hillbilly. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. Y'all, there have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in these here hills of Kentucky ever since Daniel Boone came through the Cumberland Gap, and my ancestors came through with him. I'm one of the Cumberland Gap originals. So y'all, we have freedom-loving state, and we're in a freedom-loving county. But we have been handed some flim-flam, and I think it's time that we all look at it in order to pass on it and reclaim our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So to do that, we have to look at the symptoms of the cult that we're currently living in. And to do that, we've got to go back to the promises the cult made to folks when they said, hey, if you just join up with us, take our little Kool-Aid here and drink it, we're going to go off to Never Never Land. So let's look at this. What are some of the first promises the cult made? The cult said, hey, the economy and cost of living was going to be lower for American families on day one if we put the cult in power, right? But there's been no lower costs for American families since January of 2025. Matter of fact, a Senate Banking Committee report found households paid an estimated $2,120 more in 2025 due to inflation, including higher electricity and higher grocery bills. That same committee says despite pledging to cut energy costs and utility costs, they have risen roughly 35%. That's nearly 3 times the overall rate of inflation. So this has pushed many families, including many here in Hardin County, into debt. Student Borrow Protection Center, we were promised this would come back and come to us, and that Trump would roll back and help us all with student borrowers problems. And the cost of being a student borrower in a stagflation economy, they're tremendous. Well, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has been rolled back by the administration. That's what would protect folks from these outrageous student loan prices. And yeah, the whole protection program, the CFPB, has cost American families at least 18 billion in 2025 alone. The Student Borrower Protection Center, we were told, hey, that was going to come apart. It didn't. It didn't come about. And instead, they rolled back the protections. So that has hurt working Americans. We were also told that the tariffs and trade negotiations of the master negotiator, let's make a deal guy, was going to give us all a windfall. We're all going to get so much money back and get actually checks mailed to us once these tariffs, dividends started rolling in. Well, it hadn't happened. Instead, just the opposite. So this Liberation Day, it did not liberate us. It put us further away from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But, Trump declared that April 2nd, 2025 would forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn in America. That has not happened. And that was not a day that will be remembered for that. Now, when you're in a cult, you have to keep on making excuses for the cult leader. So what is the excuse for the cult leader on this one and on all these that we've mentioned? The tariffs. All they've done is hurt our farmers here in this county. We know that most of the soybeans that were grown last year did not get bought because of the trade war. So, yeah, it's not remembered as the day American industry was reborn. Those tariffs did just the opposite. They destroyed any remaining industries we've had because people can't afford to buy things. But critics, of course, they're just saying nearly every prediction he made about the tariffs, it just went unfulfilled, and the reciprocity, he promised a reciprocity would come. Tariffs would bring back jobs, which would raise our wealth and would all wash out in the end. Well, it hadn't. We know that we haven't gotten wealthier as Main Street Americans, and we haven't seen any more jobs created. Actually, we know that the one that was here in Glendale was destroyed. We're hoping and praying that actually is going to come back online as Ford is promising us. So now the Washington Examiner has recognized that rather than having a manufacturing renaissance, the share of adults working or looking for work shrank by 0.5 percentage point since March 2025, representing roughly 1.4 million Americans who just dropped out of the labor force. That is significant. The Washington Examiner, also said Trump promised his trade war would be great for the American farmer. But again, we just went over that already. Bipartisan farming advocates warned the industry could collapse amid the tariff pressures. So we know currently right now, if you're still going to buy that part of the cult's promise and the cult leader's promise on that, and you just got to be like, oh, well, I'm still glad I voted for the cult. Well, here we go again. He made a promise there would be no war with Iran. And yet, what are we at? The current, whatever he wants to call it, is causing an increase in diesel prices and an increase in everything a farmer needs to put on their field. Those prices have gone up significantly. And as they go up, groceries go up, we're all feeling it. Another absolutely undelivered that could have been delivered. It was a deliverable. But no, this was a chosen war. This was a chosen, unplanned expedition that's now left us all feeling it. Not to mention, this is Memorial Day, and we've lost 13 lives. That's a price too much to pay for a broken promise. So, what are we going to do about it? You know, we know that the news outlets have been describing near zero job growth in 2025, and they characterized Trump's promised blue collar jobs boom as producing just the opposite result. And the Senate Democratic Caucus says that has shown us that U.S. based employer laid off 108,000 employees in 1 month, 3 times as many as the prior December and twice as many as January 2025. So, national debt. The leader of this cult said, hey, I will eliminate the national debt. What has happened? His budget legislation is predicted to add over 3 trillion with a T to the national debt over the next decade. So even with elevated tariff revenue, the government would still need to borrow nearly $2 trillion in fiscal year 2026, keeping public debt trending unsustainably upward. So, what is it that we need to see in order to realize this is unsustainable and we cannot keep going on and on and on with this type of rampant deceit and actually expect to come out of it more intact than before we joined this cult. Trump promised to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, but his own Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, acknowledged the one big beautiful bill contains a backdoor for privatizing Social Security. That is not something that my elderly mother voted for. She will not survive if Social Security is privatized. Now, on healthcare, had a lot of promises there too from this cult. The cult promised better healthcare for less money, but many constituents right here in Hardin County are reporting premiums have doubled or even tripled. That is unacceptable in my book. So he also promised to protect and expand IVF access and make treatment cheaper. And that's a promise that, he has not fulfilled. It was just an empty promise. Could have been fulfilled, could have been something done about it, but that was just to get the vote. And now that everybody has taken the Kool-Aid, there's no need to fulfill any promises. Instead, do just the opposite. All right, so we've also talked about student loans. But since January 2025, a borrower has defaulted on a student loan approximately every 9 seconds, resulting in over 3.6 million new defaults, a crisis described as nearly 3 times worse than pre-pandemic levels. The Student Borrower Protection Center reports on that, even though it's been gutted. Trump promised to end the war in Ukraine. On day one, he was going to be the man to end that thing. But the war has continued past its 4th anniversary in February 2026. Does that, did that promise fall on empty ears? Again, was the Kool-Aid, were we so deep into it that that's another one that's okay? Well, let's look at this one. Transparency. Made a lot of promises about transparency. He promised to release the files. And that's a pledge that we should seen he has no intention of fulfilling. We know that we just lost a long time conservative representative in Thomas Massie simply because of the Epstein files. He was one who wrote and pushed that legislation along with Ro Khanna. But Massie said, hey, young women that are raped that way have a right to be heard and to see justice. That was a bridge too far for this cult. So what is it that has to be done for us to wake up and say, hey, this is absolutely a bridge too far for any of us? What does it take to come out of the coma and look at reality? So, all right. Again, let's just look at, I'm going to recognize the folks I see here like Ding, Black, and Tom here in just a minute, y'all. I'm not ignoring you. So, we know that Thomas Massie only has until January of next year left to fill his promise that he is going to release the names of folks that are in the Epstein files. Does he have anything left to lose right now? I don't think so.
House, you have named names in the Epstein files in the past. Can we expect you to name more names in the coming weeks and months?
Yes. Todd Blanche is violating the law. There's still millions of files they haven't released. We know from talking to the victims' lawyers that their own 302 forms haven't been released. We know that files have been over-redacted. I have released at least 3 names of billionaires who are implicated in this. I don't think it's possible to get to convictions with Todd Blanche at the top and with the FBI director, Kash Patel, at the top, because they've effectively both perjured themselves by saying that there's nobody else in the files. Even Melania doesn't believe that. The First Lady knows that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. And here's the great thing, Kristen. Whether I'm in Congress or not, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a law, and it goes on for years. So if we can't get this Attorney General and this FBI...
So it's a law, and it's a law that is being ignored by the administration, by the cult. The cult got elected. One of the chief points that people decided they were going to become a member of the cult was they were promised the cult would release the names of everyone in those files, and that the truth would set the kids free that had been abused so bad by so many billionaires, worldwide billionaires. And what have we seen? Crickets. We know that Marjorie Taylor Greene says that the cult leader told her they cannot release the files because his friends would be hurt, bad hurt, and that she knew a lot of them. She'd met them at Mar-a-Lago. Well, here we are. What does he have left to lose? Got till January. He knows that the most money ever spent on a House of Representatives primary campaign was spent just up until we voted recently on the 19th. So many millions upon millions, tens of millions of dollars spent just to get rid of him. A very, very, very conservative Republican. But one thing was too much for him. One thing he stepped away from the cult from, and that was to say, no, we will not allow this injustice to keep going. That and not voting for the Iran war. That and not voting for government expenditures that are putting our debt into stratosphere. And that's what's happening now. Our gross domestic product is going to be exceeded by our debt for the first time since World War II.
Director to do the right thing. The next ones who take those seats are obligated by law to release the files that these individuals are not releasing now.
So that's two big things right there. One, what he's saying is he's going to start naming names, because when you speak on the House floor, I fully understand this law or this.
So he's going to speak on the House floor. He has that immunity where he can speak on the House floor, name the names, and nothing can be done about it. That's not hard to understand. What is hard to understand is how we know that we were told the affordability. The other lie was everything was going to be more affordable. Only he could solve it, and he would solve it on day one. How many excuses are we going to make for this? We know that last year, all of the intelligence agencies reported that there were no nuclear weapons capabilities in Iran. Tulsi Gabbard even came out and said it after getting all the reports from every one of the intelligence agencies. And he decided, the cult leader decided to listen to another foreign leader, tell him that wasn't true, that our intelligence agencies are stupid, and that the British intelligence agencies are stupid, the French intelligence agencies are stupid, and this other foreign leader and the cult leader together would rid the world of this phantom menace. All right, so before I keep going on, let me acknowledge everyone that has been kind enough to stay up this late with me. Ding Black, hi, good to see you, Ding. Tom says, on the topic of cults, I'm a fan of the YouTube channel by Knitting Cult Lady, Daniel Mestianic Young. She's darn smart, has survived being raised in a cult, went on 2 deployments, those were combat deployments, as an Army captain. And yeah, she does have a very good show. I've also seen the effects of what it means to be in a cult and have to keep on making excuses for this leader that you've adored for so long. You just think that if you do everything the leader says, that leader's going to love you right back. Well, look at Jim Jones. The love right back was poison Kool-Aid that everyone drank because the leader said so, said only he knew the truth. All right, Tom also says Biden tried to forgive a lot of student loans. I know some who were surprised to learn that their loans were forgiven, and some who applied but didn't get to the loop. Well, many people that were getting that student debt forgiveness, they had all that recalled after January of 2025. That is a travesty, especially to all of us. They're just barely coming back from recovering from the worldwide pandemic. All right, Tom said it's going to be a while before the rest of the world will trust a system that allows someone like the Orange Menace to gain office again. I can't blame them. Yeah, and you can't be a world leader if the good guys won't trust you. That's just a fact. Tom says Massey has been threatening to name names on the House floor for months. And yes, I have to agree with you. I have yet to see that he's done so. It's past time for him to put up or shut the fuck up and get the fucking hell out. And I agree. So, absolutely agree. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she could have done it before she left. She didn't. So, yeah, they're all unwilling to, I guess, take millions of hits that they would have to take if they actually were to name names. That's the only thing I can figure, you know. But once again, remember, biggest things that he won on, he was not going to send us to war. Yet Venezuela, Iran, planning on going to Cuba. What more do we need before we say, hey, this is a cult leader, not a leader that we can trust anymore and that we can give our mind to, that we can drink the Kool-Aid with. All right. And again, just a reminder, right? Greenland is not a 13-year-old girl. This is him telling Greenland hello. If you remember, we trashed our relationship with Europe over this. We trashed our relationship with Canada, our most loyal ally and trading partner in the whole globe. We trashed it by demanding that they become our 51st state, either willingly or by us using force. That is not something that you do to your best friend. I don't go to my best friend's house and say, give me your house or else. Never done it, never will. And yet, that's what we did to our longest friend and most dear friend in the world. So if you've never visited Canada, then you don't know what really friendly people are like. Really friendly people that thought the world of us. They've been to hell and back with us in combat in Afghanistan, in World War I, World War II. They've always been by our side, and yet we repay them in that way. So, what are we going to do? And again, this leader has told us numerous times he is a genius. He knows more than all the generals in the world, all the generals that he has. And yet, here we go. How much have these wars cost us? Well, I've tallied it up for you before here in the show, but let's just take one last gander before we sign off here again on what it cost us. And this is lowballing in cost right here, I'll tell you for sure. But the world's most advanced fighter jet, most expensive drone, U.S. lost 42 aircraft worth $29 billion in the Iran war in less than 2 months. And that's not even part of the cost of this war. The missiles that we've used, that now we have almost completely depleted, or possibly even have, and we're just not being open about it. Our missiles that we've depleted cost so much money, and we are now vulnerable. And this is the peace president. Remember the man who demanded that he get the Nobel Peace Prize because he was so jealous of President Obama getting it? Yeah. Well, y'all, if you just don't recognize the symptoms of a cult. Symptoms of a cult is following a leader no matter what, even if it means taking yourself to drink some poison-laced Kool-Aid on the promise that you're going to get something out of it. We have not gotten anything out of it here in Hardin County. We've gotten farms stretched to their limit. In this whole state of Kentucky, we're losing our heritage farms left and right. We can't afford this anymore in this state. That is our heritage. Farming is food on the table for all Americans. Kentucky is one of the big producers of food for the nation. We can't stay lulled into complacency in this cult while we lose our heritage. And the most important heritage we've got to lose is our right, our inalienable right to life, liberty, and that pursuit of happiness. And nothing we're seeing right now is helping that, is facilitating that. Everything I've outlined here, all these on day one promises that were not delivered, because as much as he's trying to be, he's not a king and he couldn't. We don't elect a king, we elect a president. So, yeah. All right, Tom says, Trump saying he knows better than any random person is a clear example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes, absolutely, which I did a whole long episode on explaining that, and how we are in the Dunning-Kruger presidency. So, y'all, I just beg all of us, we can rescue the nation from this, but we've got to get serious. It's got to be staying on the phones, in the email boxes of every single representative and senator in the state. It is being in the streets, constantly redressing our grievances through our First Amendment right to gather to do so. And then November, we have got to sweep out all the corporate Democrats, not to mention the guardians of the PDFs. So it's up to us. Only we can rescue us. I promise, if you vote for me in November, I will be all about your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And make sure that here in Hardin County, we live up to the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, so that we may stay united and not fall. Because united we stand, divided we fall. And if we're not looking out for our neighbors and loving them as ourselves, and we're not recognizing that we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, then we're going to be divided. It's not about left versus right anymore. It's not about Democrat versus Republican anymore. It's about the working folks of this country having their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness upheld and held as high as those of the elite class who are being protected in the files. So open our eyes and let's get to it. Y'all have a great Memorial Day weekend. Let's do not forget who it is that we are serving. That's the people. Bless your corazon. Have a great week. Have a blessed Memorial Day. Remember everyone deployed, and let's don't forget the sacrifice of those who deployed and didn't get to come home. So have a great rest of the evening.
Beans plants are shipped across country in refrigerated trucks. And third, they take longer to cook than model bush beans. In the 1950s and 60s, convenience became king, and TV did it. Soaking overnight got laid But here's what they didn't say. Old-fashioned means it actually works. Your great-grandfather didn't grow salad runners because they were tender. He grew them because when the bank foreclosed on farms across the